It's the old Doctor Who show, episode number 102, Meglos.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, Toby?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS would be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's a divinity, but a person, you see.
The resulting reaction describe it. Are you ready?
Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, your classic tri-weekly Doctor Who review podcast. Was that right? Was any of that right?
That's it, man.
Cool, we're done.
We have to set up a situation if something were to happen to me and I became incapacitated. We have a chain of command of what the show would still go on, and Dan has to be there at a moment's
to be clear,
notice.
I'm third in line, though. I mean, Eric's first. Literally anyone else in the world is second in line, and then I'm third. So I'm just practicing just in case there's no one left in the world to do it but me. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show. I am one of your hosts. My name's Dan.
One
and
half.
over there, who's the other one? This guy I'm pointing at.
Yeah.
That's Eric.
This guy using a pair of old iPhone AirPods. They're not AirPods. They're iPhone headphones. And they suck. So you're very low. So if I'm overcompensating by talking louder, we pass that savings right on to the listener. So enjoy yourselves. Stan, how have you been these last 3 weeks since our last episode that we recorded?
It feels like just yesterday we did it, Eric.
It does feel like it just happened.
Yeah. We could talk about the state of the world and things that are going on in our lives, but let's not do that.
No, this is a stress-free zone.
That's right.
This is a politic. You check your red coat or your blue coat at the door, Dan. This is and if you're in the U.S., we are at the last 10 days, 9 days till the election. I don't know. It's all.
We're not talking about that. That's not a thing we're talking about.
Yeah, we're not talking about it. So everything's fine.
Yeah.
What did you do? Did you spend any time watching Vampire Circus?
No, what the heck is Vampire Circus?
Oh, it's so good. It is. So I've been watching. It's Halloween season.
Yeah.
October. I'm a horror movie fan.
Eric's entire family.
But in October I like to watch a bunch. I've been on a Hammer horror kick, so I've been watching a lot of those films. And one of them that I hadn't seen before is called Vampire Circus from the 70s. It is wonderful. It's very violent. There's lots of sex and there's lots of murder, and it has one of the best decapitation scenes that I've ever seen in a vampire movie. It's got like an art house feel to the whole thing. It's on Amazon Prime. I highly recommend it to everybody. But it's at that moment in. Do you know like the Hammer movies?
I know. I mean, no, I'm not a big horror person, but I know of them. Sure,
right? Yeah. From Britain, they got into making monster movies, so it started off with sort of, I don't remember what the first one, I think there's like Quartermass and something or other, but they ended up going through like the Universal monsters, and that's where you have like Christopher Lee as Dracula and all those, whatever. Yep. But in this one, by this point in time, so maybe this is, I should probably know what year this is. When was like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre was, I think the original one was early 70s, wasn't it?
Okay. Yeah, so
I don't know.
At any point, like around this time, like Hammer, I think, was having a harder time selling these gothic monster movies, Dracula, because cinema is starting to get into like things that are a little bit darker. So they start to add a lot more sex and nudity, and they up the gore a bit. I just looked it up. Vampire Circus is 1972. But as I'm watching it, lo and behold, one of the vampires appears on screen, and it's Lala Ward. It's Romana 2.
Wow.
Yeah. Is it Lala Ward? What's her first name?
Yes.
Yeah. Who I didn't also know is married to Richard Dawkins. The
yes.
famous atheist, Richard
Yeah.
Dawkins, who is in one of the most insufferable films I've ever seen, called The Unbelievers. Have you seen?
No.
There's
No, thank
just
you.
like him and I forget the other guy, and they're driving around in like a limousine, just like, just tall. I am not a fan of it. But I'm a fan of her, and she's great in Vampire Circus. I highly recommend Vampire Circus. One of the best Hammer movies I've seen. A great vampire movie if you like that sort of thing. It's just a great revenge tale. It was all very good.
So that's our review of Vampire Circus.
Circus. I'm not doing a very good review, and I probably
that's great, though.
Fudged a little bit of the timeline as far as sort
There's
of the decline of Hammer and everything. And especially on a podcast like a Doctor Who podcast where we're speaking to half our audience is from the UK anyway, are probably rolling their eyes a bit on my reading of it. But I loved it.
That's fine. There's literally no way for anyone to fact check you, so that's fine. But there's a nice tie in
It's
there.
great.
With,
it's so good.
with
And
Doctor
there's
Who.
like animals, and it's so dreamy. It's like it fits right in with my. It touches all of the. It touches all the buttons. Yeah, I don't know. I liked it. What were you going to say, Dan?
No, it really does. It's like every part of your aesthetic.
Yes.
Yeah,
I like
across
the
all.
gothic horror. I like. I miss
The
sex
dreamy
in
quality
horror
makes it
movies
sound like
too.
it's a
and
little
You get it's just it's good.
Amazing.
I was thinking about that the other day as I'm watching it, like that period, like in the 70s and the 80s, there was so much. It was like sex and violence coupled, and now like the horror, like everything within horror, in recent horror, it's all based on like grief. It's all like some horrible thing. Somebody loses a child, or they're, it's all just. It's like grief porn.
We were talking about that before when earlier, not on the show, but you and I were talking, and I was watching The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix.
Yep.
And overall, it's fine. Haunting of Hill House was fine too. I think that was a little more interesting in the way that it was done, but the ending of that one was just ridiculous, just spelling everything out, and the way that it all comes together was crap.
The Haunting of Hill House has the ending that
Yes.
spelled everything out. Yeah.
I just didn't like the last couple episodes of that. Everything up to that was pretty cool. Bly Manor, I think, ties together better, but it is so much like this grief porn. That is exactly all that it is about.
And it's just interesting, like how these movies, horror films especially, move through these periods. You had before that, like the 2000s maybe was like torture porn. Like it was like everything was
Right.
saw. Like you just watch these things, and I miss the days of the 70s. Where you had like a lot of Satanism, and you had vampires and sort of otherworldly horror versus internal horror.
Right. Yeah.
It's fine.
Well,
But is Bly Manor worth watching? Because I have not seen it, and I did like Haunting of Hill House for the most part. And I know it's based on, the Turn of the Screw.
yeah.
It's like a retelling of that, which is on my bookshelf, and I've never read it. So sorry, apologies to Henry James. I have not read it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of very stylized, beautifully done. The production just looks great. Production design's beautiful. The photography is great. The acting across the board is pretty great.
Yep.
Even the kids, which could be, they're featured very prominently in that, and that could be a problem. But I think they did a very nice job. And but it is what it is. It is that kind of like dealing with grief and that sort of thing that's going on. But yeah, overall it was enjoyable. It's another one of these things on Netflix where they just have free reign to do as many episodes as they want. And I read someone else, I think like Glenn Weldon on NPR, saying that one of the problems with Haunting of Hill House was it was like 1 or 2 episodes too long. I still feel the same way about Bly Manor. It's 1 episode shorter than that, but it could have been another episode. Like, just get rid of some of the stuff that you didn't need, which is in keeping with my reviews of most of Classic
like
Who.
your go-to Doctor Who review. Speaking of which,
I don't think that's the case in this one, but let's find out. Maybe you'll talk me into it. So, you want to talk about? Which one are we doing today? We're doing Meglos.
Well, we're supposed to hit the button, Dan. That's our whole.
Is that our
thing?
shtick?
We have to speak.
Have you seen the button?
You have to make a transitional statement of some kind. We were sort of doing that. Speaking of
find the button.
things that are perfectly timed. No, I'm forgetting.
What?
Hit the button. Hit the button and get us out of this moment.
Reroute surplus to Section 5. They have spare capacity.
The oath-taking ceremony is prepared.
What, you're making him take the oath? Zasta, this is ridiculous.
It's got to be done, Dietrich.
Zasta!
Doctor, it is good to see you again.
Again?
It's been a long time. I'm Zasta, now the Tegelen leader.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, I remember you very well.
You haven't changed much, Doctor. Little older, a little wiser.
Oh, much wiser. I gather your energy source is behaving somewhat capriciously.
Capriciously? It's out of control.
Excuse me. Excuse me. An absorption system, I presume?
Yes, there's a series of receptor panels placed above the dodecahedron, and the radiated energy is measured there.
And these screens can be closed down?
Well, yes, the central storage banks would contain enough energy for 1 hour, but it is extremely dangerous.
1 hour is all I'll need. Turn them off.
Close down receptor panels until further notice.
Good. Now show me the dodecahedron.
This is Meglos. This is the second story, or second serial, in season number 18, lucky number 18. This is from 1980. So if you were listening to our long horror rambling segment earlier, you'd say, oh, this is probably about 1 year before Friday the 13th film. This is written by John Flanagan and Andrew McCullough, and directed by Terrence Dudley. We've all seen Terrence's work before, but I believe this is the first story we're getting from these two writers. What's it about? Hey!
Couldn't tell you.
Hey, who's out outside? What's the story about? Oh, okay, little friend. This story is about the Doctor and Romana too, and they're called to the planet Tigella, I think, to settle a dispute between two warring factions of science and religion. But things get weird, Dan. Things get real weird when a cactus monster kidnaps a businessman and assumes the identity of the Doctor to steal the Tigellarians' dodecahedron and decide that he wants to turn the desert planet of Zalfa Thura, desert planet, into a super weapon. So there's a lot to sort of process in there. But what did you think, Dan, of the Tom Baker story, Meglos?
Well, Eric.
Yep.
Let's see. Overall, I thought it was a fine story.
Fine.
There wasn't one of these, crazily overly convoluted plots. I think it was a pretty straightforward plot. I think. Let's grade this on a curve. I think the acting was fine with the guest cast. Actually, the guest cast was pretty good across the board. One of the things that I did notice, and this came from we'll do the responses from Twitter, but I forget we'll see this. Someone had mentioned that at this time, Tom Baker and Lala Word were on the rocks, shall we say? And after having read that and continuing to watch the story, I can kind of feel that. Maybe it's coloring my perception of it, but it really felt flat between the two of them, especially in the very beginning. They feel like a very much like a old married couple.
Right, and they were married for about a year, right? 18 months or something.
It did not feel like there was any spark between them at all. It just felt really flat the entire time. Now, later on in the story, they separate and go there. They have their own little side adventures as they're going through the story. So that was fine. But when they were together in the TARDIS, it just felt very flat. And we're there for a long time because of the time loop that we'll talk about in a minute. But overall, it was a fun story.
I'm a little confused by that.
Great.
Because I just looked it up. And so she got married. This episode was from 1980, which is when they got married. And they divorced in 1982. So they're on the rocks the same year they get married?
This is someone from Twitter mentioning this.
All right,
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But
that seems a little odd.
Be that as it may, whether that's true or not, their interaction and chemistry to me just felt really like there was no life in it.
Really? See, I have to wait for my turn.
No, I'm not going to give you a turn. So I'm just going to talk the rest of the show. Let me see. Other than that, no. Tell me what you thought about it, and then we can dive into the specifics.
Okay, I absolutely loved every second of this. This was like a perfect 4-part adventure tale. This, again, like, everything was working out for me media-wise this week. I'm watching great vampire movies. And then I put on what is always my favorite period of classic Doctor Who and why I love Doctor Who. And it's Tom Baker. I felt that Romana, too, and Tom Baker here were wonderful together. I loved their chemistry. And I loved her so much. And I'm a big OG Romana 1 fan. I would have liked more than one season, but she's great. I mean, I just felt like she's just a ton of fun. I felt like the color palette in this story was really wonderful. It was silly, but not in a goofy way, in like a just like a weird way. Like the fact that there's a freaking cactus monster, and it's just like all these crazy cosmic ideas sort of blended together. And it's very much on the nose story-wise. The science element with those terrible haircuts where you can see like the glue of the bangs are glued to that poor guy's forehead, and religion and how those two work, and the ineffectual government that is sort of unable to make a decision about anything, and everybody's got to have a chance to speak, and we can certainly relate to a lot of that in our own time. But that aside, I just thought everything was wonderful, and especially Romana 2 and the Doctor, them in the time loop and trying to figure out how to get out of the time loop. I don't know. I thought I liked them together. And we haven't mentioned the fact that Barbara is in it, and she was amazing. She was. I think she was the best actress in the whole thing. Like, she was really good. I felt that she really brought a little something extra. I always liked Barbara. There's something about Barbara I kind of liked. I had no idea she was going to be in it, so that was a total shock. Like to see that she was in it, so that was nice. I don't know. I loved it, and there's a part in. I don't remember. I should have wrote down what episode it is in it with the music when it sounded like they introduced the theme song into the background music, like the first opening bars or whatever. That was really just like a nice little
loved it
touch. I thought that was great. K9, we didn't need K9. Like, you could tell he's not working because half the time they're carrying him.
Yeah.
But I like the whole wiggle his tail little gag in the beginning. But I don't know. I thought it was fine. I mean, I thought it was great.
I agree with you.
It wasn't just
I
fine.
agree with you that
Romana's dressed like Sailor Moon for some reason. And then does several wardrobe changes.
I really enjoyed her in this, and it's been a long time since we've seen her in our run back through the stories. I thought she was fantastic. I thought Tom Baker was very good, both as the Doctor as always, but more so as Meglos, really having a defined character separate from the Doctor. But again, it's just the interaction of the two of them. It really felt like, and it wasn't on Lala's side, it wasn't on Romana's side of the where the chemistry didn't feel right. To me, it was from Baker. When she would say anything, he was always staring off into the middle distance. He was never looking at her. And it's this whole, like, okay, the Doctor's preoccupied and he's just doing that thing that he does where there's even one part where they're having conversations. She's talking about one thing, he's talking about something else, and then realizes halfway through they're not even talking about the same thing. Like, that's fine. Like, he's distracted, whatever. But it just went on for so long, it didn't feel like they were even connecting at all.
See, I found all of that charming. I felt like it was almost like flirting. Like,
it felt like the exact opposite.
Literally, my notes, this time loop is wonderful. Bringing the businessman to space desert is wonderful. But anyway, Romana 2 Baker energy is wonderful. I have just everything is just wonderful, wonderful. But I love them together. Like, I felt like, oh, this is like, there's something special here with the two of them. It's just weird that like you're like on the exact opposite, where
Just
you felt
did
it was
not
flat.
feel it. Did not feel it. Like while they're in the time loop and dealing with that, which I thought was fun. That was a fun little. I mean, the way they get out of it is pretty silly, but that's fine. But going through the time loop over and over again and realizing
can we talk,
the caught in
like
it.
talk about how they get out of it, because it's worth commenting, because it doesn't make
it makes
really
no
any sense. But
no.
I bought in.
They're stuck in that time loop. What do they call it?
There's a name for it, and I hadn't seen anything. And
chronic hyper.
I loved that. I thought that little bit of, like whatever to the lore of time travel was just cool. Like they got caught in this little thing and they keep repeating it. But yeah, there is a name for it, and they're like, well, we'll just act out the thing before it, as if the thing's paying attention and it gets confused. And then somehow
well, yeah, that's exactly why I thought it was so strange. So
get out of it.
So just to explain what's happening. Everyone's seen this, so there's no need to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, well, the first part of it is when before the time loop even begins, Lala's trying to work on K9 to fix him after having been drowned in the sea in the previous story, which is a story that we did ages ago.
Yeah, what was it? Do you remember? Because I don't remember what it was.
Yes, I looked up and I don't remember. Oh, it was Leisure Hive. They're on a beach and K9 gets wet. So she's trying to fix it. Tom Baker the doctor is walking around, pacing around the TARDIS. Did he have was a leather apron, but he had something on and then took it off and dropped it on the ground, and the camera zooms in and stays on it on the ground. It's like, okay, that's weird. He walks around and then trips over it, and it's just such a ridiculous way that he trips forward and stands on one foot and has his arms waving and then stands up. I was like, that was really exaggerated. They did that so obviously when you do the time loop, you're like, oh my god, he did the exact same thing again. But it's that same, I don't know, it was just overdone. Doesn't matter. They're doing the time loop, and it seems like right before it's going to reset again, they have a couple of moments of freedom before it kicks in again.
Yeah.
And because the Time Lords, they're
it's
sensitive to that. They notice that they're in the time loop, and they have. What I like is that when they go through it the first or second time, they're talking about what's going on here. What could it possibly be? And the Doctor realizes, oh no, what if it is this thing that we can't remember the name of it, the time loop? Everyone shouted at once at us, and maybe we'll hear you.
It doesn't matter what it's called.
It does not matter. But anyway, so when Romana says, oh no, if it is that, the expression on her face of actual terror, of like, oh my god, we're going to be stuck in this forever, and K9 saying that there's no known way, no technological way to get out of it. I really like that moment. Like, even they're scared of this and don't know what to do. That was pretty cool. But then the way that they get out of it, Doctor realizes there's no technological way out, so it must be something else they can do to get out of it. Yeah, and they just reenact the exact thing that happens in the time loop in that moment of freedom, so that when the time loop starts again, it goes, what? And then lets them out.
Right. And this is, it's called a chronic hysteresis. Hysteresis?
Chronic hysterectomy. But
anyway, I walked away,
but I like that.
Yeah, I like it. Was fun. And then once they land on the planet, so there are two planets. I mentioned that in the synopsis. Yes. So there's like the jungle planet, which has these great plants, like these really colorful. What am I?
Giant
thinking
tulips.
Of? The Rick Moranis movie that I can't. think of.
Little Shop of Horrors, Audrey 2.
Type, like Venus fly trap type.
One of my favorite movies.
But when they're there, when they land there, and how excited Romana is at the thing, and the Doctor's like, "There's no time for botany." Right. I thought that was great, and she's got a great red dress. I thought that was, after she's gotten out of the Sailor Moon outfit. But it was, I don't know, I loved it. I can't think of anything bad about the.
Well.
Even like the goofy space junkers, like you would see out of like Guardians of the Galaxy or something that are involved, and they're it makes no sense, and I understand it makes no sense that there is a sentient cactus that is behind this whole thing that has hired they did the exchange. He has hired these Ravagers for lack of a better word, I'll stick
The
with the
gas
Guardians
tax.
motif, to go and find a human businessman who looks
Okay.
like he
Yeah, okay, so
was
let's
just
pick
on
this
his
part.
lunch break to use
Let's
it
pick
like
this
it
apart a
had to
little
be
bit.
a human business. Like
Yes.
it makes no sense.
No
he
sense.
hasn't seen
None.
the doctor yet, so he's going to assume the identity of the doctor.
Well, no,
But
no,
he's already
he didn't-
hired them to get the businessman.
No, so okay,
Right?
okay. So cactus guy, Meglos. First of all, he's a cactus in a control room full of panels that are obviously meant for a biped with arms. Like, how does he interact? Okay, so let's say that the plant's plugged in biomechanically to it. Why does it need all these buttons and knobs everywhere? It would just do like it doesn't like the setup doesn't make any sense. Maybe he turned into a cactus at some point. I don't know,
Don't
but
know.
it's just very strange that's. Or maybe the rest of the organisms on the planet, the other higher life forms, they were the ones, and he took it over and survived, and he's just a different race. I don't know.
Now,
Something happened.
Now I'll interject here. I don't know, and I don't, I'm just going to say this is a complete rumor. I'm not suggesting that either John Flanagan or Andrew McCullough were on peyote when they wrote this, but it's quite possible they were on peyote because you got a talking cactus that's going to tell you what to do.
That seems about right. I like it. I like it as a theory. So Meglos hires the Gaztax somehow to go get
that
an
business
Earthling.
guy.
But why an Earthling? Doesn't matter, I guess.
I don't know.
Why does the Earthling look like Stephen Merchant? Who knows?
Yeah,
But I
he
really
did.
Thought it,
He
I really thought it was
100%
Stephen
did.
Merchant. It must be his dad because this was 1980. In the full businessman, like the stereotypical 1980 businessman attire, which is super fun. So I don't understand how that all works, but I'm assuming that Meglos didn't know the doctor was going to be there. His plan was to get a suitable host to then morph into and take control over. So for whatever reason,
he needed
an
a
Earthling is the
a
right
body.
thing.
He could have
needed a
just
body.
used one
He
of the
wasn't-
Ravager bodies.
Well, I
Since,
guess
you know.
maybe something about Earthlings.
It was
Something about our chemistry.
That
makes
was
it-
funny. I mean, I'm sure that there is some kind of meaning to using it, or whether it's a stream of consciousness thing that came out of these guys' heads, with or without peyote.
Right.
I just
Mostly
liked that whole like it was
I think it was great.
weird. It was my kind of weird, I think.
So, what did you think of the Gaztax themselves? So we had the two main guys that were running it. We had a whole collection of them that show up on the ship. But we have Grugger, who's running this whole thing, General Grugger, and Lieutenant Brodadak. So you kind of got like almost like Laurel and Hardy sort of.
Yeah, they have like absolutely like a Laurel and Hardy thing. And I liked all of their comedy business with the coats and how much the guy wanted the jacket, the doctor's jacket, and then there's two jackets, and so I could see people not liking that or thinking it's corny or whatever, but I liked them. And the main guy, who's the guy with the beard,
that's Grugger, the general.
He almost looks like if you took Tom Baker and just enlarged him. Like he has like this whole like Tom Baker quality to him. But I thought they were both funny. And I like their element.
These are well-known character actors, and I'm not familiar
they are?
with them, but apparently.
Okay.
Bill Fraser, that's a name that I do recognize, but I don't recognize the character. One thing I noticed in the notes on the TARDIS Wikipedia, Brodadak, the lieutenant guy, the Laurel to the Hardy?
Yes.
Anyway, it's Brodadak is an anagram of bad actor.
Oh,
actor,
okay.
Which was an in-joke in the production. So why did they do that when they hired Frederick Treves to play the role? I don't know, but that seems like a weird joke. Anyway, but I liked the two of them. I liked the design, very like Mongols, space Mongols, raiders, which was kind of cool. Their ship was kind of interesting. Oh, one of the things I noticed in the beginning, so when their ship lands on, I always want to say Zarathustra, but whatever it is, that the planet with the shields.
The Dune planet.
Zolfrathura. When they land on Zolfrathura, it's the miniatures with the green screen, and they come out through the door, and the tracking shot. And I thought the first time I saw it, I was like, for this era where the production values were not the best, this was actually pretty convincing and done pretty well. Turns out that this was their first use, BBC's first use of the synchronized cameras. So you have a camera doing the camera motion of the live actors moving exactly the same, and then another camera replaying that exact same action with the miniatures to do the green screen effect, because before it had to be two static shots overlaid on top of each other. This way they did the sync. They apparently never did it again in Doctor Who, but it was a good proof of concept for BBC, and they did it in other things, which is kind of interesting. But not having known that while I was watching it, I thought, oh, this is actually pretty well done for for this era. It falls apart a little bit later. There's a scene towards the end when Meglos has the dodecahedron and the miniature version of it, and it plants it in the sand. He's looking for a spot to plant it, and he's totally blending into the green screen.
Yeah, that was a little
he
rough.
Looks like a ghost, which was pretty horrible. But talking about the set design and the production design of this, the underground city I thought was really well done. There were a number of sets in there, and they are multi-level sets. Mm-hmm. Stairs going all over the place. It felt very claustrophobic and underground, but it felt like specific locations throughout. They say it's a city, but it felt like it did feel pretty big. So that felt very real to me. The top side of the planet was pretty cool. The Audrey 2 Little Shop of Horrors plant, I thought was actually pretty well done. It was a little silly. Like when we see Romana get stuck with it the first time, the vines are wrapping around her and she's fighting it off. Like that seemed pretty good. when the gas tax come through, she's leading them astray around, trying to buy time and trying to escape from them. Comes back around to the plant and stomps on a root so that it attacks them. At first, it's really good, but then watching it as the general, it's just like annoyed with it and just like walking past it. Like I don't know if it's the actor or the character, but it was just like, this is stupid. It just walks past while the rest of his like minions are like actually fighting with it, and it looks pretty convincing. I was actually wondering how they did the vines, because I don't think it was strings or anything. It was pretty intricately wound around them. It looked good. I quite enjoyed it.
It was fun. I mean, what did you think of the the science
versus religion stuff?
Religious cast. I thought the science people, like that hair was a little rough, and all of their thing was very derivative of stuff that we've seen a billion times. But I thought the religious, like the red robed sort of looked
beautiful.
I thought that was great.
Looked beautiful, and it was just really sold. That whole look, the whole demeanor, the whole idea of the religion was really sold by Lexa, by Jacqueline Hill.
Yeah, she was so good.
She was the part that sold it. Had it been another actress playing the role, maybe not so much. Zaster, who was the kind of the guy leading everything, but kind of diplomat between the two sides, I thought he was very good.
We've seen him before,
like that he
right?
had a.
He seems like someone that has been on Doctor Who stories in the past. The actor,
right?
He seemed very familiar to me. Like,
apparently,
I've
no.
Seen him.
Apparently, he hasn't been in any other.
Okay, there you go.
Find, but that's okay. Yeah, so I like that. I like the costuming of the science folks as well, except for the hair. I was hoping it was not part of their like actual physiology that they all had hair like that. Like it was some sort of like monks wear a little head covering. Like I thought maybe it was just so bad. It was especially rough. The main guy that you were talking about. Is that
some looked better than others?
It just looked really.
But the main
horrible.
guy was the worst.
It was too far back, and you could almost see his own hair.
You could see his. Yeah, there was times you could definitely see his own hair through there.
Why not? I mean, their wig budget was just terrible. Anyway, the tension between them was pretty cool. What do you think of Meglos captures the Doctor in a time loop and then transforms into looking like the Doctor? But then every once in a while, especially when the Earthling was trying to fight back from the inside, the spines would come out of his face and hands. What did you think of the look of that?
I loved it.
Like very, very Hellraiser sort of.
Yes, yeah.
Speaking of the Halloween themes
happening, I liked. Yeah, I thought that was great, and I'm a fan, just in general, of those doppelgangers. So I liked the fact that Tom Baker got to play, a baddie. But yeah, whenever the effect of the businessman trying to come out was always cool.
It's fun.
I'm not really sure I understand, so he's trapped in there, and he's also aware of, and he's fighting back.
I think it was in his head.
Who knows what's happening?
Well,
because at the end,
with...
he escapes, right? And then the cactus slime Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the essence of the Meglos crawls away, and they all watch it. Like nobody just grabs it or steps on it and then goes back into the cactus.
Well, I like Alice says that at one point that it must be indestructible because it was some sort of light something blah blah blah, and that he'd be virtually indestructible. But yeah, but it's a cactus normally, but sometimes it's also a slithering spiny slug.
Well, I guess the essence of the thing is this slime or whatever, and then because it's a desert planet, cactuses grew, so it went into the form of a cactus, and that's where it lived, and it could also go into the form of a human and be...
But then why bring the cactus with it?
But then the cactus elements are still present. I don't know. I really don't know.
I really enjoyed Tom Baker as the baddie. I said this before, and you just kind of mentioned it again. Even when he doesn't have the spiny things, and just looking at him, the way that he emotes and portrays this character, you see it all in his eyes. Like he does a really good job of being this separate character, of being Meglos.
Yeah, it's fun. And especially when Tom Baker as the Doctor is impersonating Meglos, but he's still Tom Baker, and like all his little
Tom
Bakerisms that he does, that even though he's pretending in the story that he's supposed to be fooling them
a number of times, in different stories. But I love that where he comes in and he doesn't know what they're talking about, but he has to, yes, of course, the thing. I enjoy
I like how they sort of inverted some of dismantled some of the sort of tropes that you were expecting to see. So the jacket thing, the whole jacket thing. At one point, someone else walks in with the jacket, and you're like, he's been busted. And then it's like a hard cut, and then he's like, you both have jackets, and they're like happy, like it made no effect. And there was another scene when the Doctor as Meglos and the Doctor as the Doctor are together, and two characters run in. You're like, oh, here we go. We're going to be like, which one is the real? Right. But they don't do it at all. They're just like, okay, that one's the real one. And he's like, yeah.
But I mean, that's great because it does actually make sense. They were so very, even though they looked the same, they were very different.
Right. And I was happy not to see that play out because I've seen that. I didn't want it, and they didn't give it to me. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. So the Doctor ends up blowing up the planet. That's how they all get away.
Yeah, I mean, I guess was great too. Like, so he just does this maniacal laugh with Meglos when they're both rooming together, and he's like, "Yeah, I reset all the coordinates so that it's going to concentrate the energy and blow the planet up and kill us all." Mm-hmm. He doesn't have like an escape plan at that point. Nope. It's suicide or go home. And it was like, all right, but I guess he blows up the desert planet.
This has nothing to do with anything we were just talking about, but one of the silly moments that I liked. It's again like you had kind of described, silly, not goofy. But the Doctor is walking around on the planet, and he's looking at the shields.
The 4 shields
that are structured there, and he gets a guard comes up behind him. And you're like, he's going to get captured now, or they're going to know. And he says to the guard, "Does this look vertical to you?" And the guard's like, "I don't think so. Can you hold it up?" And it just has the guy stand there and hold it up.
That part was so funny. Was so fun. I loved that. I love that. It's like cute. There was a lot of times in the story where you expected it. In every other story, it would go one way, and they just go with comedy. At least for me, it worked as being funny. So I don't know. I thought that was really good. I can see people not liking this, and I didn't do any research as far as like whether this is considered a good story. If people thought this was like a terrible story, I could be like, okay, I can sort of see that, but I had the exact opposite reaction with it.
Well, as I said from the beginning, like I thought this was a fine story. It isn't necessarily one of my favorites, but I did enjoy it. I mean, as we were saying through from the beginning, this isn't one of those stories where I felt like, oh my god, there's a whole extra part that we didn't need. Like it doesn't feel that way.
Like perfectly paced. It was so weird, but it was a 4-parter, so it was okay. It was allowed to sort of be as weird as it wanted to be. But one question I had for you on the story was, like, what is Meglos' objective? I mean, I understand he's got this thing. Oh. It's got all this power. He wants to destroy other planets, and then he asked one of the Ravager guys to pick a planet. And then they have that little thing, and he's like, okay, it's your turn to pick one. But, like, what's he going to do? He's just going to destroy...
That's one of the things that comes up, though, when the Meglos and the Doctor are rooming together. he says, why?
Yeah, why are you doing
why
all
do you
this?
want to take over? Why do you want to take over the galaxy? Like, then what? So, I mean, I like that because that is always the big baddie's idea is like, I'm going to take over the world or I'm going to take over the universe. Like, to what end? Why do you want to do that? So they didn't answer it, but I like that the Doctor himself asked the question, like, okay, why? So no, I don't have an answer for that.
And,
I love it.
and speaking of that, is like he literally he doesn't even decide what he wants to destroy. He lets them pick.
Right.
Like he just likes the idea of being able to do it, but he doesn't really care who gets killed, or he just. And
yeah.
The other thing that was funny too is those Ravager guys from the very beginning try to undermine Meglos, and you always think Meglos is gonna like kill them or be like, "I'm done with you," but no. It's like in the beginning they're like, "Hey, we can steal this, we can steal this, we can steal this," and then they're like, "There's no doorknob," or they can't get the door open. And Meglos is like,
right.
"Yeah," and then that happens several times. And even at the end, when the Doctor is pretending to be Meglos, they're like, "Throw him in the jail cell," and Meglos still hangs out with them and still travels with them and never once like turns on them, even though he doesn't really need them.
But I think he also didn't feel threatened by them at all. So why not? They're going to help him get where he needs to go and whatever. So he's like,
yeah, but a lot of the times they only mess up because the Doctor fooled them or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's all fine.
Yeah.
Do you remember or do you know what is our next episode? Because this one ends. The end of this, as you said, like the planet's going to get blown up, but they get a distress call or they get summoned by the Time Lord. So I was just wondering, okay, well, what was I forget what comes next. It's probably some Time Lord heavy thing. It's Full Circle.
It's Full Circle.
Which I don't. Oh, that's when we get Adric. Okay, so that's the Time Lords are like, hey, by the way, pick up Math Boy.
Yeah. This guy won a math prize and he gets to travel with the Doctor forever. You need to pick him up. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't have much more. I don't know if you have much more to say about this. I really liked it. I was very happy to watch it. I also watched it over the course of 4 consecutive days instead of all at once, and I felt like that helped a lot.
Yeah, I broke it up as well. I was just looking briefly just to see what other people thought about this story, and according to a lot of the rankings I just kind of perused, this is definitely in the bottom 10.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I wouldn't put it there. This is solidly in the upper third for me, maybe. But it's not, or it's in the middle. It's definitely in the middle somewhere because I just enjoyed it. Again, any story that doesn't have the extra part or two that doesn't need to be there, it doesn't do the thing or so much of the thing that I really hate, where it's just running in circles. The damsel gets captured. We have to go rescue her. She gets captured again. Someone else we have to go back. Like, they don't do that padding in the story. So for that reason alone, I would give it a higher ranking. And just again, everyone's performances were so fun. I just didn't like the chemistry between the Doctor and Lala at the very beginning of it. But her running off, gosh, when she's leading them in circles, they do a lot of the repeating of lines in this story. There's a throwaway line, and then they kind of bring it back again. So the anti-clockwise rotation of the planet, Romana uses that as her reason that she can't navigate. Yeah. And she has this look of like, this is such BS on her face when she's saying it, but she knows it's going to work. It was delightful. So I love those moments.
Yeah, she was great. I still disagree with you. I thought
You're wrong,
I like them together. Maybe I understand, or from what I remember, they did fight a lot, so maybe this was whatever that person read. This was a time during the shooting that they were fighting. I don't know. I would never have thought that. So I'm curious where that came from. If that's from one of the DVD extras or something, and they went into that being an issue. What did any listeners get back to us? I have one listener, Kristaps has wrote us, but not about this. He wanted us to talk about the Dune trailer, which I'll certainly gladly talk about.
Go ahead and do that. Yes, we got a lot of response. A lot of response from Twitter on this one. But go ahead and read that email while I pull that up.
It was on Instagram. I think he just said, did you guys talk about the Dune trailer? Of which we did. I mean, I think we did talk about it when I
think we talked about it a lot, and
I think it looks amazing.
Folks.
I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm curious, some people are already complaining about the fact that in the you can't tell, it's only in the trailer, they refer to it as a crusade, like a crusade is coming. But it's very much a jihad in the book, and whether or not that's being changed for political reasons or not, or whatever, I have to certainly need to watch I hope that they didn't do that and they just took it out because they don't want it to. There's so much within Dune that comes from Islam and everything. I mean, there's stuff with Christianity and the Orange Catholic Bible and all that stuff. But for them to just pretend that that's not part of where... because that's a huge statement that Frank Herbert's making is... This is essentially within the same line as Earth, and in the far, far future, Islam is still a huge part of religion, and to sort of try to erase that and do crusade, which is a Christian thing, whatever. I don't know. I hope that's not the case, but I'm willing to certainly give it the benefit of the doubt until the actual film comes out.
Don't worry, folks. We'll discuss Dune ad nauseum whenever it
I think it just looks great. I think Timothy... I know we probably talked about this, but if you are on the fence and you don't think he's a great actor, which he is, I would recommend The King on Netflix. I thought, after seeing that, I was very excited about the idea of him as Paul Atreides.
Well, going back to our stories here, the reason I thought that you were talking about the email is Chris Lips did write into us. You can send us an email at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com, and actually did mention Meglos. Says, missed a few stories, so I figured I'd drop in. I love this season of Classic Who, but not this story. Tom Baker prefigures Hellraiser, but that's probably the best thing you can say about it. Apparently, this is coming from Chris Lips then. Apparently, Baker and Ward were on the rocks at this point. Tom was sick with a mysterious, still undetermined illness, and there just isn't a lot of chemistry or magic here. So,
see, well, he believes he's on your side.
Well,
I
jumped on his side because I read it and I'm very impressionable. But either way, I still stand by that. I don't think that their chemistry at the beginning was the best, but individually, I think they're fantastic. Okay, leaving that aside, let's see what you folks had to say on the Twitter machines. You can tweet us at TODW Show and let us know what you think of. As we go forward here, let's see. We got a bunch of feedback. Sorry, scrolling. There we go. Bernard says, the cliffhanger music to part 4, so weird. I don't recall that being specifically weird, but I do remember liking the music throughout, and especially that moment that you called attention to. I'm glad you did that.
Was a nice
where it does repeat a bit of the theme in it. But
and I'm trying to remember if memory serves me correctly. The cliffhanger from part 3 is when the doctor is going to be sacrificed, and the giant rock.
Mm-hmm. I think it's 3 to 4.
They're burning the ropes, which another really funny moment. When all 2 of the 3 ropes have been burned, and then there's a whole conversation that's stop, it's not the real doctor, blah 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 blah, and the and Tom Baker's like, hey, can we just decide on something right now so you can stop this thing from falling?
Right.
Like he calls that bit out, which I thought was great.
That was pretty good. Yes. Going on here. Lisa P. says, the early 1980s were a good time for dodecahedrons getting airtime on the Beeb. And there's a link to a YouTube video about Plato and Socrates. Okay, cool. Sure. I didn't watch it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, just seeing this now. But thank you for responding. Paul Paranoid says, how come Mego knows the Doctor has a new look and can create a new coat and scarf as well as replicate his appearance? I kind of thought it would have been fun if Meglos was running around in Season 17 garb and the Doctor was in his brand new burgundy getup, but that's just me. I think it's because Meglos was able to actually see.
Yeah, he literally watched him in the time loop somehow. But
however he's able to do it. But yeah, it's because he was able to see him. And then as far as being able to create a coat, let's just imagine that's actually part of him, and he just shed off his skin. That's disgusting. So thank you for that. Nitro9 says, dodecahedron, such a great word. Seriously, though, and I'm serious about dodecahedrons, the villain is a cactus. It's amazing. Also lovely to see Jacqueline Hill come back for a new role. And the guy who insisted on kicking K9. The chronic hysteresis is loopy fun. I did read this again on the Wikipedia, take it for what it's worth with a grain of salt. But the actor who played the general agreed to take the role only if he was allowed to kick K9 during the story. I don't know if that's true or not, but he gets to do it, so that's fine. I think there were a lot of people who wanted to take that job. Ellen Kingsley says, I don't know what kind of phobia I have, but Meglos' cactus face is definitely triggering it. Yeah, it's creepy, and he's got it on the hands too. He's all made up with the spiny things, which look pretty dang good. Nitro 9 again says, knowledge of the dodecahedron was considered too dangerous for the public. Wow, and the whole thing around the religious side of the society, thinking that's either it is their god or it's a manifestation from their god.
And the pledges that you have to take and completely submit before you could even see the power room and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So that's cool. Lisa says, proving there's more going on in Meglos than one might have thought at first glance. In response to our previous tweet there, so that's pretty cool. What a great hoot, says Keith. Lush, aggressive vegetation. They do mention that even before they land on the planet, that there's a planet with lush, aggressive vegetation, and there you are. The incidental music is especially gorgeous. The screens of Zulfa Thura brings me out in goosebumps. It's just a strange, that phrase, the screens of Zulfa Thura, whatever. It's, anyway, cool. I'm really doing a great job reading these, so thank you for all the wonderful clapping and feedback I'm getting from everyone. Let's see. Greenfinger Librarian Simon says, the cactus voice sounds as dry and sandy as a cactus would sound. It's wonderful. Beautiful music, too, especially when the lab ascends. I loved, actually, the effect of you see the screens there, and for the first time, the science lab / prison coming up from beneath the sand, rising up. Again, one of those miniature shots that I thought was pretty effective, especially for the era. The Nostalgist says, I like Meglos. I like Lamp. Brian says, agree about the incidental music. During the cliffhanger when the Doctor is about to be crushed by the worshippers of Tai, the music starts chanting, Tai, 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 right before the stinger. Very cool. Apparently, the composer used a vocoder. I didn't actually pick up on that. I thought it was the worshippers were chanting that. But if that actually came out as part of the music track as well, using a vocoder, that's pretty dang cool. That could do that. Let's see. Brian says, I wouldn't bother gifting the chronic hysteresis. I think the episode has that one pretty well covered. No. I'm doing a 5-minute GIF of just them going through the same thing over and over again. I will be giving that almost near pratfall that Tom Baker does.
Yep, because and several times.
Goofy. Going back again, so thank you for that feedback as well. Tom Tarpey says, I always keep the cure for a chronic hysteresis in the back of my memory in case I'm caught in a time loop. It was good to see Barbara again. I always thought the cactus makeup was really good. More importantly, that is a really nice coat. It's just so funny how much that lieutenant just was salivating over the coat. He makes some really strange... He pulls some strange faces. There's a moment when they've shrunk the dodecahedron. They're in the spaceship. That guy, Lieutenant, sitting next to Meglos in the back seat, and Meglos pulls it out and is looking at it. And the guy just makes the weirdest face like he's smelling bad cheese right at the Doctor, but it didn't make any sense at the time. He should have been like, yeah, we're going to take over the galaxy, but it's just very strange. Yep. Maybe bad actor was a good anagram. And lastly, W.J. Bird says, Meglos is an odd beast. It's enjoyable in parts with a great double part for Baker, suffering under a ton of makeup for the second time in this season, and extremely ambitious effects-wise, but my God, it got boring for me. Does anyone really watch it to the end? Well, we did.
I did.
We watched it to the end.
Lord knows I
overall enjoyed it. But thank you, everyone, for writing into us. We really appreciate that. Again, you can tweet at us at TODW Show, or you can send us an email at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com.
Yeah, please do.
Eric, is there anything else you want to touch on?
Yes,
sorry.
And my book got announced last week, so I have to mention it, and it is available for pre-order. So if you would like to,
what's it called?
It's called Goblin. So you can just go to Amazon and put my name, Eric Grissom, Goblin, and it will come up. It's $15. Come on, $15. It's not going to come out until next year, but get your pre-order price guarantee in there now. You'll also be
Again,
able to
this-
get it at bookstores, so you can go to Barnes & Noble and a bunch of other places. And if you're a comic book reader, you can certainly get it through your local comic shop, but it's not going to be in previews through Diamond until probably a few months from now, because it's going to come out on June 8th. And then comic
That's
stores
fantastic.
at the end of May. But yeah, please check it out. There'll be a lot. You'll hear a lot more about it, but it was officially announced from our publisher, Dark Horse, last Tuesday, I think.
They gave a nice little spot on their homepage there. So that's again, that's
and
you and
Will
Will Perkins
go to
again doing this one, right?
Grissom on Twitter, or follow me on eGrissom at Instagram. If you wanted to retweet or repost the article from the Comics Beat or any of those things to let people know that it is out, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Go on, Dan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Is this your second or third collaboration with Will Perkins?
This is my second Will Perkins book. So Will and I did a book called Gregory's Suicide, also for Dark Horse. So this is our second book with Dark Horse. And this is my second project with Will Perkins.
Awesome. Congratulations on that. That's super
thank
cool.
you.
I have nothing coming out. My life is an empty void. So thank you guys very much. What are we doing in 3 weeks? We got.
So we're gonna do another Peter Davison story, right? I don't think we finished Pete yet.
That is correct. We got a Davison.
What do we have? What is it? What's it called?
It is called The King's Demons.
Okay, yeah, King's Demons.
I think this
coming
is
up, and then we're back to Hartnell.
This is the last one we're doing.
Yeah, and then I think we've done
Davison.
all of Peter Davison.
We've done all Colin Baker as well, I think.
Yep, yeah, Colin Baker is covered.
Interesting. All right. Well, so look forward to that, folks. You'll be able to see all of the gifts and everything on TOW Show on Twitter and on Instagram. If you want to see any of our previous episodes, of course, you can subscribe to them, but you can also go to theolddoctorwhoshow.com and check out all of our previous episodes. You can stream them there as well as check out the galleries that go along with them. So until next... We're good. All right, everybody. All right. Thank you so much. See you in 3 weeks. Bye.
Just wishing that I had just something you wore. I put it on when I go lonely. Will you take off your dress and send it to me? I miss your kiss and then I miss your head. And the letter in your writing doesn't mean you're not dead. Just run outside in the desert heat, make your dress all wet and send it to me. I miss your soup and I miss your bread, and a letter in your writing doesn't mean you're not dead. So spill your breakfast and drink your wine. Just wear that dress when you die.
Where's my robot? You know?